So number 15 is our wastewater implementation plan. Sorry, I'd like it to be minimisation as well. We've got Michelle McDonald. That's all right. Don't rush. Welcome, Michelle. Thank you for stepping in.
Thank you. Right, good afternoon. Yep. All right. I probably won't take too much time on this, but we've just prepared a brief presentation really to talk about how the implementation plan has been structured, rather than going through the individual actions, because that may take a bit longer. Just to recap, the implementation plan is an output of the integrated water strategy, and it has been delivered post the completion of the LTP and the asset management plans. So in fact, it tries to demonstrate how the LTP is serving back, is delivering the goals and the objectives of the integrated water strategy. In terms of timelines, from now on, we would be monitoring progress against the implementation plan, and obviously after the next LTP review, we will be able to review again the implementation plan. Integrated water strategy has got four key goals and 11 objectives. Not all of those objectives are applicable to wastewater treatment, but where they are, we have addressed them in terms of what the strategy is calling for, but also other actions that are contributing to achieving those objectives. In terms of structuring of the plan that we've put forward, really the essence of the plan is the Excel-based spreadsheet, which is, I realize at the back end, we did include some wording just to explain some of the projects and programs. But the spreadsheet is linking goals, objectives, and approaches to our actual programs, projects, and activities. That's been an output of the LTP. So it's a bit of a complex hierarchy, and there's, I suppose, many ways that you could hash it, but we've linked it at this stage through the spreadsheet. Then each of those program activities and projects has got a bit of a metadata to identify what the priority is, what the status is, how much is funded, how much is not funded in our current programs, etc., who the delivery team is, etc. The priority identification we've quantified against the funding level, whether it's funded or not. So if something is fully funded or it's part of our business as usual activities, it would get a 1. A 5 means that we do not believe that we have either enough resources or there's not capital funding. So it's aligned with the LTP. I've included in the presentation just going, all the objectives to give you an idea of the list of all of it, and or just referencing if there's any questions later on those, but I'm not going to work through each one of them right now. In terms of what's next, we would like to also work on the template so that it becomes better for monitoring progress. There's obviously, we probably need to consider how to number the actions so that it can be easier followed. And then it's about reporting progress on how frequent we need to indicate what the progress is against that plan. And that's probably open for discussion. My question mark, should it be annually? I've just put some slides in to give you an indication of some of the work that has happened in the meantime as well.
Great, thank you.
We're happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the 1 to 5 chart you've got there, and the reducing inflow and infiltration. identify and fix pipes to reduce inflow and infiltration. We've got a 4 there, so that's means that it's. So that's an ongoing piece of work. It's funded but not complete.
Yes,
So there's enough funding to complete it, but it's
no, partly funded. So, which one specific? The page number, the I&I.
the graph thing, the implementation plan structure with all the priority legend on it. If you go backwards a bit, and the orange
Oh, on the first
objective
one.
to
And the big
objective
spreadsheet.
5.
I don't have my big spreadsheet open.
That's so
Reducing I&I, yes, part of the renewals that we're working in, which is funded, but there's another part of reducing I&I, specifically also the private part.
yeah.
More resources needed, and I mean it's an ongoing process. We certainly don't have enough in our programs and budgets or resources to address I&I to the level that we want it to be addressed.
So is the private and public in that one box there? Identify and fix pipes.
Yeah, it's collective.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes. We see it as across the city collectively, and we estimate public side could be 50%, private side 50%, but there's such a lot of work involved in reducing that. Parallel, though, is our renewal program, which is also supporting that. So, but it is only targeted as a 4, because we believe there is still a lot that could be done.
So if you add that funding up, it's 11 million or something. Is that right? In those boxes, it's big money. These things, isn't it?
Yes, so Akarua only and Devotional is that those were targeted. So we did the monitoring, and we could target exactly which pipes should be repaired, and it includes also identification of private leaks. So I mean they're small communities compared to the rest of the city. So if we had to follow that approach throughout the city, we certainly don't have that level of funding. What we're doing now is prioritizing catchments, understanding from our modelling which catchments do have higher I&I, and using what we have to try and investigate further and focus and target our efforts on those catchments. So we are combining a lot of what we already have to deliver that. But yes, we can't yet say whether how much more would be needed.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yanni?
Yeah, thank you for the work you've done on this. This is really good to get the big plan. I guess the timing sort of doesn't quite work because it can't really inform the LTP, but it could inform the annual plan. So I just wondered if we can have a session, like we've got the 2 massive documents tomorrow and stormwater as well, but just having some sense of the budget prioritization process around each of the activities. Like I don't know how others feel, but there's certain things in here that I would love to change, but obviously doing that today probably isn't the best process.
No.
Again, this is a reflection of what is IAU in terms of the annual plan, but this is a reflection of what is currently funded in the LTP and in the annual plan. So it's changing this. The change should be at the annual plan level or at the LTP level, and this should reflect it back. This is not pushing those items.
I think when we adopted the strategy, what we were hoping is it would inform the budgetary processes, not the other way around.
Of course it does, and it did. It informed the asset management plans,
right?
Which in turn informed the infrastructure strategy, which in turn informed the LTP. So it of course did inform all of those planning processes.
Okay.
But the implementation plan is a reflection back in terms of how it was.
I just think at a governance level, the implementation plan is the key thing, and it's great that you've brought it to us. But if we've got concerns around what's being prioritised or what might be changes, this is a really good. The spreadsheet and the actions relate back to the strategy that we adopted. So it's actually a really good way for us to get visibility of what's being done. Okay. So I guess the question is, if there's things that we feel should be done that aren't being done, what's the process for us to put those forward?
Yeah.
Is it just through the annual plan, is it?
well, if it's doable in the annual plan, yes, but otherwise to factor it into our next planning process. So yes, we should have that session then in terms of what other priorities or what other items.
Yeah, I guess just to signal, the area I was really interested in was the technology around manhole covers and infiltration of the utility. Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And people holes. Yeah, whatever you want to call them. But just the way that sewage can come up through the wastewater and come into our, when it floods into our streets and impact on communities.
Okay,
So there was some discussion in here around smart technology, sensors. That sort of
So
thing.
Yanni, is that the only area that you're wanting to talk about?
Well, there's a few others, but that was the one. Stopping the raw sewage coming into, when we have storm events from our
Infiltration.
wastewater, into people's homes and into the streets is something I think,
But we
and
just
into the
talked
river.
about that is a work in progress, and it's such a big job that I think staff have prioritised the priority areas, if you like, there.
Yes, and a lot of that is factored into our optimization planning process as well, in terms of making sure that we do not overflow manholes and or into the environment.
So could I suggest that, because this is actually an internal document, and it's an operational document, that if you've just got a couple of things that you're questioning why that could not be a higher priority, that you could put that through the annual plan questions and then get a staff response.
Yeah, I'm happy
So I
to.
think everybody else seems to be fairly comfortable at the moment. So we'll continue with the questions. Are you happy with that, Yanni, to put that through and get a response? And is that all right, Helen?
That's fine. Yeah.
Yes, that's,
I just think I think staff should be really commended at bringing this forward in a process. Like, we've had those workshops around the water supply, and that was the feedback we gave, that at a governance level, this sort of format is really good because it's easy for us to see the goals that we've agreed
Yep.
and the actions that we're going to deliver on.
Yep.
But we do need a mechanism where we can,
can
give
question
feedback
priority.
around the priorities and make
Yeah,
decisions
but
at a governance
since you've
level.
only got a couple of points there, I think it would
Yeah.
be fine for you to put the question through, and then we may lead it into the annual plan and we may not.
Cool.
Andrew?
Thank you. So 2 areas of question. The first is engagement with Ngaitahu and Runanga. And I note the comment that you would normally have engaged with MKT, but due to the COVID situation and so on, that hasn't been possible. That'll be done retrospectively. Engagement with Runanga is often something that happens at the council's Te Honanga Papatipa Runanga Committee. Although realising this is an internal document, is that why you would be engaging with MKT rather than coming to Te Honanga?
Yep.
yes. So most of the early engagement was on the integrated water strategy itself, and this is implementing that strategy.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, my second question relates to the way that you've listed the various Banks Peninsula areas. So you've got Littleton Harbour, Akaroa Harbour and Kokorarata. And there are issues that are generic across all 3 harbours that seem to have only been listed to one area. So Kokorarata, best practice septic tank design and maintenance, prohibit long drops, prohibit discharge of sewage, bilge water, blah, blah, blah. That's just as relevant, even though it's only listed under Kokorarata, that's just as relevant to Akaroa Harbour as it is to Kokorarata. So if we look at Wairoa, for example, Wainui, for example, where there are long drops and septic tanks that don't meet the current standard, those issues around septic tank design and maintenance and long drops will be just as relevant, if not more relevant, to Wainui as they are to Kokorarata. Similarly, Littleton Harbour, we talk about sedimentation, and the issue that's raised with wastewater ingress into the stormwater ingress into the wastewater system in Akaroa is just as relevant to parts of Littleton Harbour as it is to Akaroa. So I wonder if we're missing something by compartmentalising to particular areas where some of the issues are a lot more generic than you would think by reading this document.
I understand what you're saying. Certain of the detail that we've provided is project specific, but then there's also, as I said, our activities, which is planning specific. So a lot of of where we need to be is entrenched in what we consider to be a planning process. So, for example, what we're saying is that the Banks Peninsula servicing strategy needs to consider servicing throughout Banks Peninsula, whereas we don't have specific funding on the table as yet to address specific additional communities within Banks Peninsula. So it will evolve out of the planning processes that forms part of the implementation plan.
So these shouldn't be read as facts. These should be read as areas of focus which are funded.
Yeah, as the implementation plan, areas that we're specifically doing now, areas that's not listed obviously needs to be addressed as part of the overall planning process to get them addressed at the next cycle of LTP. Yeah.
Because it doesn't read that way. Like the
Okay.
report doesn't read that way at all.
All right.
The report reads as, objectives that are relevant or policies that are relevant. And a lot of the policies that you're listing or objectives that are relevant to particular areas are actually relevant across all of the areas that you're listing, or
Okay.
many of the areas that
We'll-
you're listing. And
we'll
I
have a
would
look at
hate
that.
to think that we're including for some areas and by implication excluding for others considerations that actually are relevant. So it might be more about the way that it reads than its content.
Sounds like it.
Noted, yes. No,
Yeah.
we'll have a look at that.
Yeah, we can look at how we frame those more specific
Yeah,
projects.
I would hate for anybody to think that ingress from long drops was unique to Kokorarata when it's actually a big issue for Akaroa Harbour as well, even though it might not be an issue for the Akaroa Township.
Certainly.
I think that's a really good point, Andrew. Well done. So, yeah, it's a living document. All right, if that's all the questions, do you have a question or are you moving it?
I'm having a wee question, if that's all right.
Oh, especially if it's a wee one, yes.
Probably a question for Helen. Where is the plans of the Akaroa wastewater treatment system at? How far along are they, or where are we at roughly?
So at the moment we are applying for resource consents.
Yeah.
Are you asking the plans for the treatment plant? Detailed design of the treatment plant will follow the consenting. So we're consenting the irrigation areas at the moment.
Yeah.
The land has been purchased, but I'm aware that a number of questions have been asked about Akaroa from councillors, and so we're planning a briefing in the new year on Akaroa wastewater and where we're up to on the work.
That'll be great, Helen. Thank you.
Because at one stage, and I'm just reading this, are we incorporating devotionals and Akaroa together now, or am I misreading something?
That has been talked about as an opportunity, but there is not a combined project, no.
Okay, so
But we'll give you a full briefing in the new year on these.
okay, thank you.
All right, do I have a mover? I've filled it and Sarah seconded. Is there any discussion, debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed, that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for answering the questions so clearly as well.
Great.
So Helen's staying there for the 3 Waters bi-monthly report, item 16. So we've got